solar energy is going to be a huge focus of the Epic Urban Homestead, because without generating my own energy, I can hardly call it a sustainable project, at least in my mind. And so I figured I'd bring an old friend on, Ben Sullins, a sustainable tech expert. We met actually a long time ago when neither of us were doing what we're doing now.
Right. Was that like 10 years? It was a long time ago.
It was over 5. Yeah, it was over 5.
But here we both are.
I know.
Making videos
being YouTubers, which neither of us thought we would be, probably.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Anyways, so I found you again because we kind of lost touch for a little bit, and I was like, this Teslanomics channel was out there, and I was like, wow, it's fascinating. And I think it was the video you did about the solar energy costing out, right? At your place. And so that's what kind of got us back in touch. And I figured, why not have Ben come out and troubleshoot the space and kind of figure out what makes sense, because you've done way more in solar and energy systems than I have.
Yeah, so at my house I have 5.8 kilowatts, which is how you measure like the power output, right?
Yeah.
It's 16 panels, and I have 2 Tesla Powerwalls.
Okay.
So technically I can go off grid for about 25 hours.
Okay.
And as long as the sun comes out within those 25 hours, I should be back online. So in theory, I could live this way in a regular suburban neighborhood with, I would say, kind of common items that you can purchase, right? This isn't geothermal heat or wind turbines.
Like you don't have a well or something like that.
Right. It's not really extravagant. It's a typical thing that anyone could do in their home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty set up.
Yeah. So it's 25 hours on 2 power walls. And that's just like the power draw you typically would run out of.
So a typical home, and so you here don't have air conditioning yet.
Not yet.
And when you do, I hope you get a mini split because they're far more efficient.
I will be getting one.
But all that said, you won't have a huge energy draw like a much bigger house with a central air unit.
Right.
So your energy requirements are going to be pretty low. But let's just say a typical house pulls about 1 kilowatt of energy per hour.
Okay.
So you would call that 1 kilowatt hour, right?
Sure.
So kilowatts versus kilowatt hours. Well, a Tesla Powerwall, the typical one that they sell now, is 13.5 kilowatt hours.
Okay, so you're getting 25.
Yeah, well, so you're getting 13 hours on one ish, depending on your needs and how much you're running your AC and things like that. And so I have 2 of them. So I could technically go for up to 27 hours. Okay. But in reality, you know, if you run the dishwasher or you have a refrigerator going or you have extra stuff happening at all, and now with everyone being at home 24/7,
we're all burning energy. Yeah.
So I would put it at 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you tested that yet? Have you gone like off grid, on the grid type of thing?
I am about to.
Okay.
I actually had a mini split installed for my studio at my house, and they installed it wrong. So one thing, this is for you to know for here, when you do get a home battery, like a Tesla Powerwall, there are others, but Tesla Powerwall is the most popular one, so I'll talk about that. They will install a sub panel. So right now you have like a panel, you have an electric meter and then a panel connected to
I've got a 100 amp panel,
100, which is great.
Yeah.
Especially for a smaller home. That's plenty.
Yeah.
Unless you get like 4 electric cars like me, and then you need. But point being, those things are grid connected. So even if you had solar energy right now, you would, and the grid went down, you would not be able to, you wouldn't have energy.
Oh, wow.
Even though you had solar panels.
Yeah.
Because what happens is...
Which doesn't make sense, like from a sustainability standpoint, right? You need to be able to access that.
Correct. Yeah. And so the deal is that solar energy comes out as DC, and your house uses AC. Yeah. So you have to have an inverter, and that inverter is powered by the grid. So if the grid is gone, you can't convert DC energy into AC energy. And also you can't route it to your house because the panel is connected to the grid as well. So all these pieces...
That almost feels like it defeats, unless you say what you're about to say, it feels like it defeats the purpose of having solar, right?
Well, okay, so solar is good regardless because here in California anyways, we have net energy metering. Okay. Which means the grid itself acts as your battery. And obviously the grid is massive, it has gobs and gobs of energy. So when you're not using energy or you're producing excess energy, you're feeding that back to the grid and they're giving you credit for it. Okay. Now, there's a lot of contention over how that works, whatever, but point being,
legit? Yeah.
You're building up credits with them. Yeah. And at the end of the month, if you used less energy than you produced, you wouldn't really get a credit because there's still what they call non-bypassable charges. You'd have to pay like 10 or 15 bucks. Yeah. Point being though, your bill would be almost nothing. Right. Right. So financially, a battery doesn't always make sense if you have solar because, but if you want to be off grid, if you want to be homesteading, that's where you need all this other equipment.
So, okay, I never understood that. I mean, I knew you could sell the energy back to the grid, but I didn't know that's what made it the financially prudent move to make. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay. So if you're going from a raw cost perspective, unless you're going to live in a house for like 20 something years, then you do solar because it's going to pay itself off compared to electricity costs. But if you actually want some survivability, say the grid goes down or something crazy happens in 2020, then you go with the battery.
And like right now, there's a heat wave, and they're intentionally shutting down neighborhoods. And that could be devastating for some people. It could be truly, like imagine if you have medical conditions where you need it could be...
Yeah, you're on a respirator or something like that.
Yeah, it could be seriously life-threatening for some people. So the way to get past that, to be like, I don't care what the grid does, is you need your backup storage. You need energy that you can run on when the grid is down.
Yeah.
So this is where a home battery comes into play.
Yep.
There, as I mentioned, there are some providers out there, but Tesla is by far the most popular one and kind of the best one, honestly, for the price. Unless you want to do it yourself, totally an option. I have friends that do it.
Maybe not for me though. I don't think so.
So anyways, so what you do is you get the battery, that's your offline storage, and then you have your sub panel.
Yeah.
So I mentioned you have a panel here.
Yes.
That's connected directly to the grid.
Yeah.
You will then have a panel like downstream from that.
Yeah.
That is connected to the power walls, and you'll have a piece called a gateway that actually is the brains that routes energy around.
Oh, so it's based on what you want to do. It'll pull from the grid or it'll pull from the battery.
Right. Like in fact, I can even show you right now at my house.
Yeah.
I have my energy going, and this is whenever it updates.
Look at this.
So I have
72%.
Yeah. So I have two power walls. They're charging right now, and I can see where the energy is coming from and going.
That's crazy.
So I have solar energy powering the power wall because I'm charging because our peak demand here is from 3 to 9 p.m. So I have it configured so at 3 p.m. we go off grid. Oh,
because we're on like time of use metering, right? And so if you're off grid from 3 to 9, you're paying the net lowest cost per kilowatt hour, right? Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So and then in fact from the sun is still shining at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
So the solar energy we're producing at that time is being fed back to the grid. So that way we're actually building up a credit at the highest rate.
So you're sort of double playing.
Correct.
Yeah. So just for you guys, so I can explain it to you and understand it once more myself, you're pulling yourself off the grid when it costs the most to be on the grid, while simultaneously feeding back to the grid at the highest price. Do you get a higher price when you sell back at that hour or no?
Correct.
You do?
Yes. Yeah. You get retail rates. According to the net energy metering law or whatever they have in California, you get the retail rate, meaning if you're feeding energy back at 53 cents a kilowatt hour, you're going to get that. There is like a tax and it doesn't come out to exactly that, but you're getting a much higher rate. And then even if you didn't have solar, you could program the battery to then refill itself at night when it's a fraction of that cost.
Oh, good point. So you can charge your battery from the grid too.
Correct.
Oh my God. So it seems like it actually does start to make a little more sense then from a financial perspective.
Financially, it makes a lot of sense without solar.
Yeah.
If you have solar, remember the grid is your battery.
Yeah.
The only reason to get a battery then financially or not even financially, is just for peace of mind.
That's just practical.
Yeah. If you live in an area, I've always thought of like, Florida, where they have hurricanes.
Yeah.
Literally, I did a video.
That makes sense.
And I'm like, but we don't need that out here. And then literally next week, they're like, here come the
heat wave. I saw something earlier this year about like tsunamis are potentially likely in California now, something like that. And so just another thing that we need. I mean, earthquakes, obviously, for us.
Right.
So if you're thinking only about the finances, you either go solar or battery.
Right.
But you don't do both necessarily. Right. And if you're thinking maybe more like I am here with the Homestead, you probably do both.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, and that's what I did at my house.
Yeah.
I mean, to make videos on it, to understand this.
Yeah.
But also because I wanted to make sure that if the grid does go down, that my family is still protected. We still have energy for all of our things. And for us, we have electric cars as well. So we can even have transportation covered. So we have home energy needs. We actually have this whole water thing. And then we have transportation covered as well. Without the grid, the grid could be down forever. And
you'd be good. You'd be like, life would change a little bit, but it wouldn't change anywhere near as much as it normally would be. Yeah.
Correct. So for you, you've got a flat roof.
Yes.
You've got a smaller footprint to put solar on.
Yeah.
your energy needs now and even into the future. I mean, what do you see? Like, what's your plan?
That changes things. So I mean, I've got all the standard appliances, right? I run the office out of the second bedroom. There's going to be a shed that I probably want to wire up at some point, but am I going to be running crazy things in there? Probably not, I don't think. I probably want a chest freezer to store some extra produce.
Okay.
I'll be running like appliances here and there, like a dehydrator or ovens and things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point I'll have an electric car. I'm kind of holding out for whatever you tell me is the best one.
Buy a used one.
Yeah, so I'll buy a used electric car at some point in the future. Besides that, I can't think of a lot except for the brain that will program most of the landscaping systems. But I don't think that'll draw a lot.
It's pretty low.
I don't think that'll draw a lot.
So you're not planning on saying adding 2 bedrooms?
I mean,
turning this into double the amount of square footage and adding 2 AC units?
Not in the near future, at least.
Right.
Oh, there will be the mini split though.
Right. Mini split. But mini splits draw very little power, so it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I would recommend, so since you're planning on being here for a long time, is essentially, since you have a smaller roof, I would maximize and just kind of fill it up with as many panels as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Because you're going to either use, even if you don't need it now, over the lifetime of being here, you're going to need it.
Yeah. And I guess the more panels I have, obviously the more upfront cost, but also the more net energy I'm selling back too.
And right now there's still a federal rebate, which I forget what it is, maybe 20% or 18% or something like that.
It's not bad.
It's a lot. Yeah. So you can actually, so you're kind of incentivized to buy more at this point. And honestly, from someone, you don't have an electric car now, but when you do, that eats up a ton of energy.
Yeah.
Like if I had 0% in my car and sent 100% of my solar panel energy into that car, it would only be about 40% charged after a full day.
Okay.
It's
so
absurd.
You still need to pull from the grid or from your battery to fill it up in a day. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where, if the grid truly went away, we would just have to change our driving habits.
Yeah.
But for you now, in terms of, so that's recommendation 1.
Yeah.
Maximize your solar because you don't have massive amounts of needs and you also don't have a lot of space. Right? Now you have some big trees on this side.
The good thing is, so where we are oriented right now, guys, is we're in the back awning. And so this is east, this is west, that's north, that's south. The trees over here got trimmed at least a little bit, but it is a south facing. That it would be nice if there weren't trees, but I can't do anything about it.
Right. But you should be okay if you can still face west.
Yeah.
Because that's where we get the most of our sun, and that's where mine are facing. So you'll be fine in that regard. Because it's a flat roof, they're gonna have to pop them up. So I don't know if you lose a little bit of space. You know what I mean? Versus if it was So depending on how that is, but I would just maximize as much as you can up there. Get as big of a system as fits.
Yeah.
And then for your battery storage, I would recommend 1 power wall at least.
Minimum, right?
Yeah, 2 is nice because you could go a full day.
Yeah.
But 1 is enough to do that rate arbitrage where you buy low, sell high.
Can you do 1 and is it easy to get another?
Yeah. The difference is that rebate though. So power walls count in that federal tax credit.
Oh, wow.
So if you buy, whatever you buy for solar, if you also include power wall, that's all roped in.
Okay.
That's all counts.
And what I've been seeing too is, because I've been using energysage.com as your recommended, and they'll put together these quotes, and the quotes sometimes will say, well, we can wrap up like a roof quote in too, if the roof needs to be replaced, right? Because I'm working off of, like you said, a flat roof, but it's also 10 out of 20 years through its probably useful life. And there's like a hole in it somewhere that I need to get fixed. When I bought the house, they just were like, good luck, you don't get to fix that. And so that also adds to the cost, but of course that's not included in any. Maybe the solar company will sort of amortize it a little bit, right?
Well, I think I don't know what the rules are, but I believe they can include that in the price of their work, and the whole thing gets the credit.
Really?
I believe so.
And do they just contract it out?
Done that. Yeah. Usually they have somebody that they work with because obviously
they're not
working
a
on
roofing
roofs
company,
a lot, so they know how to do it.
Wow.
You could also do it yourself.
Yeah, probably. I want to do a ton of DIY projects here, but for example, the shed I'm going to have, it's probably not the best first project to do, I don't think. And so I'm building stuff for the workbench and the basic stuff. And
there's probably stuff that your strengths work better at.
Yeah, like a compost bin.
Right, versus
building
some of this stuff. It's not hard, but it is a lot, Okay,
so what else should I be thinking about, or if someone's watching this and is that's a lot. I think we went from pretty much not really knowing anything to knowing most of the economics and most of the like logistics on why you would choose something.
Right.
But are there any like red flags or like little catches that someone should watch out for?
Well, what you get in the solar, when you look at solar, and we can look at your energy save stuff if you want, but there's all different kinds of panels and different kinds of inverters.
Yeah.
In the end, what it comes down to is price per watt. How much are you going to pay for how much energy are you getting? That's really the financial thing to focus on.
Okay.
The other thing is warranty. So panels usually have 20 to 25 years. Panels, from my understanding, they don't really go bad. They get maybe less efficient over time. You got to clean them every 5 years, literally like take a little squeegee.
Yeah, just hit them.
It takes 30 minutes. And then your inverter is what goes bad.
Okay.
But thankfully, your inverter's here on the ground, and it's relatively easy to change. A lot of times, just your electrician can do it.
Okay.
So looking at the price per watt and looking at the warranty, those are the two biggest things. Whether regards to the company, there's a lot of these kind of fly-by-night companies, tons of companies that have come and gone.
That's what's been intimidating for me, because you start doing a Google search and there's like 42 companies that are willing to do it for random prices, and you're like, what's real? You know?
Yeah. Now, the good thing is that those companies are just the installers.
Yeah.
Right. But the challenge is if there's something wrong with your install later on, you kind of screwed. You don't know, who do you call?
Yeah, totally.
Because your electrician's probably like, I'm not going to mess with it.
Yeah.
If you call another solar company, they're like,
we didn't do this.
We didn't install it. I mean, so we're going to charge you, a ton for it. So if you can afford it, going with the more reputable company is going to be a good move.
Okay.
Specifically for the maintenance issue, like my house wanted to add more panels.
Yeah.
Because after we got a second electric car, I was like, oh wow, we're consuming just gobs
way
of energy.
Too much. Yeah.
So can we just extend this? Can we do this? And that company's gone. And I'm calling other companies, and they're like, sorry, we're not gonna. It's not worth it for us to like come install 2 panels at your house.
Yeah, exactly. So
like,
did you DIY it then, or like what did you have to do?
I haven't done anything yet, but because we're gonna redo the garage and move bits, so we're kind of in flux with a lot of those components right now.
Yeah.
So there's that. Now, the other thing is where you put your inverter.
Mm-hmm.
The inverter, likely you'll want to put closest to the panel.
Yeah, which is right around the corner, yeah.
We put ours in the garage because we thought, we're going to have our power walls in the garage. Well, there are all these caveats about where a power wall can go due to the fire code. So it can't go next to a room. So like you couldn't put it next to your bedroom.
Okay.
It would have to be somewhere else. If it is in a garage, it has to go on the side of the garage, not at the back. Otherwise, they have to put like poles there so you don't run into it with a car. So there's all these different things about that. We put ours in the garage thinking, that's where we'll put our power walls. It'll be perfect. Well, until we learned power walls can't go.
You can't put them there.
Yeah. So thinking a little bit about that, and that's why if you, from the initial quote, talk to someone that knows how to do this. Yeah. Because Tesla aren't the only ones that can install power walls. Mm-hmm. They do a lot of them, but you can get whoever your solar company is, or Tesla has solar as well. Yeah. They can kind of coordinate all that with you up front, so you don't end up like us, where it's like, oh, hey, we did that here, but that was stupid.
Where do the power walls end up at your place?
They're next to the electrical panel, kind of behind. They're technically on the master bathroom wall on the exterior, and they're just sitting on a piece of concrete right next to them.
Just chilling out.
You can mount them on the house too. Okay. They are kind of heavy though. I think they're like 300 or 400 pounds each.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
And what you do is you sandwich them together, so you can get a ton of them. Yeah. Like I know friends that have like 5, and you get like 2 stacks or 3 stacks or whatever. Dang. But we've got 2, and you actually drill a hole from one and just like kind of plug it into the other one.
Oh, a daisy chain it just like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
So where these things go is something else to consider.
Okay. Cool. I think that's a pretty good overview of solar. It's given me a lot. This will be episode 1 of the solar project. It's just like the overall planning. And actually you do a ton of solar stuff on your channel and just sustainable energy. So it's Ben Sullins, and I'll put it in the video description. But yeah, man, thanks for coming by.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Peace.
One of these.
Yeah.